Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ashley, and this is My Sweet Perspective, and I'm back to talk about Lessons in Chemistry, episode 6, Poirot, y'all. And so much happened on this episode, y'all. It was really insightful. We got to learn so much more about Elizabeth's history and a potential connection to Maddie's dad. So I'm excited to see what we're going to see after this point. But y'all, let's get right into it. So we know that Elizabeth has kind of been struggling to remain independent in Supper at Six in her new show, dealing with Dwight, honey, and he is pushing her to the limits. And so throughout this whole episode, we are living in the present, but we're also going back to the past and we're learning again more about Elizabeth, where she came from, and maybe why she is the way that she is. So, again, this episode, her show is doing so well that now they're starting to get sponsorship deals. And so they have this sponsorship deal. But of course, Elizabeth, being a woman of integrity and knowing her own mind, she is like, I don't use this product. So I'm not promoting it to my audience. And he's like, you're promoting it or you're fired. Okay, and so she goes on, and in normal Elizabeth fashion, she decides that she is going to ignore what Dwight said and go on about her business. Well, after that, he's like, you're suspended for 3 days, no pay, and that affects everybody. Okay, so the whole crew is suspended. All non-essential people to the studio for 3 days aren't going to get a paycheck. Now, we know that wasn't Elizabeth's mind, heart, or anything, right? And so she's, of course, devastated. And it's also now creating issues at the workplace with the people who work there, who, of course, are dependent on their money. Mainly, her stylist, makeup artist, things like that, she's in close proximity to. And so, meanwhile, though, we're going back and we flash back to, of course, an earlier time, and we see a young Elizabeth and a boy who appears to be her brother. And they are going to these, like, I don't know if you remember or know about camp meetings or revivals, things like that, where like a guest preacher would visit and they would do services, healing services, deliverance services, things like that. Now, in this instant, her dad was clearly a fraud. And so she and her brother would kind of just observe. Now, immediately when I saw the brother, I knew something was a little bit different. You could tell that he was very kind to her, that he loved his sister. They definitely had a connection. But as we see him on a pew at the church or one of the chairs and another boy gets close, he jumps. And so I'm thinking to myself right away, I'm like, okay, is he abused, or is he like same-sex attracted, because there seems to be an issue. And so we see, of course, different, I guess, signs and wonders happening. And Elizabeth is, in shock and awe as a little girl. And the brother says, no, these are just pistachio shells. That's how dad does it, basically. So they're running a con game. He goes into town, pretends to be touched by God or hearing God, pray for the people, take their money, whatever. It's a whole thing. And so later on, we discover that the brother was actually gay, and I guess he kept getting caught. They have an interesting conversation one day as he actually is telling her about the pistachio shells and talking to her about chemistry, which again frames the reason why we see her now a scientist, right? Because of how she felt about her brother. But he's like, she's like, do you believe in hell? And he's like, I think hell is not being able to live as who you truly are. That's like the real hell, right? And so we fast forward back to the future. And again, she's kind of flashing back through these moments as she's dealing with Maddie and then Harriet. So they are still going forward with their plan to build an interstate through their neighborhood where Harriet and, of course, all of the affluent, I guess, Black people live. And so she asked Elizabeth for her help. And Elizabeth's like, listen, I'm already in hot water. Listen, there's nothing that I can do. And of course, Harriet's like, you guys are two of a kind. And I'm like, and I get Harriet's frustration, but then I also get people having to do what they have to do. It's such a fine line. And we got into a conversation about this because it's like, we say and we hope we would do a lot of things in the face of adversity and in the face of persecution. But when it comes down to it, would we really? You know what I mean? So I think it was a hard ask. It was a good ask, but it was a hard ask. I think even for Harriet, even for Harriet's husband, even for the people that attended. So Harriet's idea is, of course, to actually have a demonstration, and actually a demonstration on the freeway where they're kind of blocking traffic. And so, and so again, Elizabeth's like, no, but then she kind of starts going back, flashing back into her mind with her brother and being standing up for something, knowing who you are. Meanwhile, they're grocery shopping, she and Maddie, and we can see that their relationship is getting back together. Elizabeth's kind of finding a balance with her newfound fame and so they're in the grocery store and they bump into the lady that Elizabeth that used to work at the Hastings, right? The admin there. And so, she's like, I'd love to come to a showing. And so, Elizabeth's super graceful, more graceful than I would have been. And she decides to let her come to a taping. Of the show. And so, Elizabeth's at the show and they're asking questions and doing all the things. And of course, Elizabeth, she's going to ask all the questions. So afterwards, she and the lady's like, you might need somebody to help you with this, to field the questions so that you're not answering all of them. You want to make the best use of her time, which again, I think Elizabeth's given her grace. I didn't like the lady from the beginning, but Elizabeth decides to put her on the payroll, hire her, give her an opportunity, give women opportunities. Okay. So Elizabeth decides, you know what? Thinking about my brother, thinking about all this stuff, I'm going to do exactly what I need to do to help my friend Harriet in her demonstration. And so she had just got off probation. She had decided to go ahead and support the brand as to not alienate any more of her employees. But this time, baby, she says, listen, there's not going to be a show on Thursday. I'm going to be here demonstrating. She puts up Harriet's flyer, which again was incredible. So next thing we see her, the doctor who delivered the baby, who's now her friend, who she rose with, Harriet, the preacher, Harriet's husband there. And again, she got to see kind of firsthand the brutality of it all, because they came with their sticks and did all the things. And so also what we've seen is that Maddie has enlisted Harriet's kiddos' help in finding information about her dad. They actually steal records from the mom's law firm. She finds it, lets Elizabeth know, and is like, hey, Elizabeth, Maddie has questions. And so Elizabeth finally sits down and starts to have a talk with Maddie about Calvin. And Maddie kind of shares her little box, and come to find out Elizabeth had a box about her brother who passed. So in that moment, you kind of see the intersectionality, I think, mother-daughter, but having a similar experience with loss, right? Which is cool. And then towards the end of the episode, Maddie has called, all the lists. She was working with the preacher, got all the lists to the St. Luke's, and she's kind of narrowed it down. She brings it to the preacher, and the preacher's like, the St. Luke's here? Your dad's Calvin Harris? With a knowingness. So I don't know how they knew each other, if they grew up together in the same boys' home, what the scope of that is going to be. But as usual, the episode did not fail me. We do see, of course, later on in the episode that, and this is trigger warning, that Elizabeth's brother does end up taking his own life because he couldn't be who he, believed himself to be, right? The dad was so problematic, and it was crazy. And it made you understand why Elizabeth has no contact with her family, because the dad was awful to him, and the mother just kind of stood by complicit in that. And it was, even when he died, the dad said he made his choice, and it was just kind of heartbreaking. So you felt all of those things. Y'all, I'm excited for the next episode. Again, this was episode 6. Anyway, guys, if you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Oh, if you're wondering about this outfit, y'all, I'm Marty McFly. I'm going to the Renaissance Festival, and it's a time travel event this weekend. So yeah, I'm the pink Marty McFly. Okay. But yeah, that's the outfit. But anyway, again, thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.